Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. My name is Dennis Brown, and this is my weekly Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Today, we're going to be doing another live Q&A, but I need you to hold your questions, okay? We're going to let some people get live. We're going to do some shout outs. So if you are here today, live or on replay, hit me up in the comments with the city and state you're logging in from. I'd love to hear from you. I'm in the Buffalo, New York area, to be a little bit more exact. Clarence was a little suburb outside of Buffalo. Lifelong resident here. Tell me about you. Where are you located? Where are you watching from today? And I'll try to give you a quick shout out before we start the live Q&A. So hold your questions. And someone already typed a question in, the one and only Jay Royce. You're going to have to type that question back in when I say go, because this is going to get lost in the feed. Okay. Sorry about that, but that's just the way, that's the format. Okay. So that's where we're at. Hit me up in the comments with the city and state you're logging in from. You've got Cynthia Moore, obviously from Maryland. She's always here. And we got a few more people joining us. So I don't know what happened to my avatar piece here. That's a little weird. Anyway, whatever. But yeah, so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do live Q&A. Well, I've been doing a lot of Q&A lately. Okay. Number one, I like doing Q&A. Number two, I get a lot of great feedback because people get the specific answers to the questions they're looking for. And number three, it gives me ideas for new content to create for my YouTube channel, right? Because if I get a lot of the same questions over and over and over again, well, then I typically try to do an actual video on that where I do it like a full 10 or 15 minute breakdown of exactly what that's all about. Okay. So again, hit me up in the comments with the city and state you're logging in from. We got the one and only Jay Royce from New York City, Manhattan to be exact. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Again, Cynthia from Maryland. Where's everybody else coming in from? I know we're streaming this on YouTube. We're streaming it on LinkedIn. We're streaming it on Facebook. I wasn't able to make, I think it was last week. I wasn't able to make the Q&A. I was moving my daughter into college. So unfortunately I couldn't make it Monday, but that's why I wanted to make sure I made it here today. We've got Ivory from Savannah, Georgia. We got JCH from Arkansas. We got William from Greensboro, North Carolina. So we got people coming in from all over. We'll just take another minute or two, let people get live. Lewis from Rockaway, Queens in New York. Again, we'll let a few more people get live, and then we'll get the show on the road with this Q&A. Hold your questions until I say go, okay? All right. Pro Guesser. Hold your questions, Pro Guesser. You're going to have to hold your questions until I say go. You'll have to type this again because this is going to get drowned out in the feed. You got to understand, I'm looking at a feed from LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, and I'll never remember your question, okay? So when I say go, you can feel free to type that question back in, and I'll do my best to try to answer it. Julian from Miami. Nice. York, Quebec from Pennsylvania. Awesome. I probably murdered that name, and as I regularly do, so I apologize for that if I did. All right, so we got people coming in from all over the place. Hopefully, pretty sure. Okay. Yep. Oh, I gotcha. Pro Guesser from Pakistan. Okay, cool. So we got people from even outside of the U.S., which is not uncommon. We usually get people from Mexico or Central America or South America or even Europe or Asia, UK, Australia. I mean, we have, I've had, just so you guys know, I started my freight brokerage back in 2003, did over $200 million as a freight broker, sold my freight brokerage in 2016. But in 2009, I launched what's called Freight Broker Bootcamp, which is a self-paced online freight broker and freight agent startup program. Since then, I've put over 10,000 students through that program. So if you guys are interested in that, you can check that out at freightbrokerbootcamp.com. But again, of those 10,000 students, the last count I had, we had students in over 16 different countries. So, people are brokering loads all over the world. I mean, obviously, US and Canada are probably the biggest hub for it. But it takes, people make money all over the world becoming a freight broker or freight agent. Corey Buchan from Billings, Montana, as always. All right, cool. So we're going to get the show on the road. Here we go. If you have a question, type it in the comments. I will do my absolute best to try to answer those questions. If I don't get to your question today, I apologize. Come back next week. I'll try to answer, or maybe I'll be able to get back in here later in the week and reply in the thread. But ultimately, hit me up if it's related to freight broker startup or becoming a freight agent or freight broker sales or how to get shippers or how to find shippers, or, be specific with your question, right? If you ask me, how do we get shippers? I'm going to answer with one word. It's called sales. If you ask me a specific question, then I'm going to give you a more specific answer. Okay. So try to be very specific on your questions. All right. So William has a question. Do you have any experience with Shipper CRM, or what CRM do you recommend? All right. So Shipper CRM is a newer CRM that I don't have a lot of experience with, but I've also not had a lot of bad feedback. I know one of the investors, one of the owners of Shipper CRM, his name's Tim Hyam. He's also the owner of Ascend TMS. I think he's an investor in that business. And I think it's heavily integrated with the Ascend TMS program, but I don't have a lot of personal experience with it. So I can't really represent the good or the bad. Now, as far as the CRM goes, I have a relationship with a CRM that's been around for quite a while. And it's specifically designed for the freight broker business. Okay. So it's called Sales Dash. Okay. Josh Lyles is the owner and CEO. I know him well. And he was even on my podcast at one point. But if you go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/CRM, that's where you can actually check out whatever offer. Usually they have some sort of a free trial, or maybe they have some sort of discount. But if you go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/CRM, that's where you can check out the Sales Dash CRM. There are tons of CRMs out there. What I don't want you to do, particularly as a startup, is I don't want you to overanalyze your CRM. Okay? Probably in the first 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you're going to change CRMs once or twice anyways, depending upon your growth rate. So you don't need a CRM that does everything right now. You need a CRM that does really well what you need in order to get started. And then you can always expand the functionality of that over time. Okay? So I hope that helps. ProGuesser asks, what exact kind of insurance do we need in order to start? ProGuesser, you do not need any insurance in order to become a licensed freight broker. It's not required. It's all optional. So the optional coverage that people will typically get if they are going to get insurance as a broker is general liability, right? Just general business liability insurance, very inexpensive, and or contingent cargo insurance. Now, contingent cargo insurance is not required. I did not have contingent cargo when I started my brokerage. Many of my students who you've seen the success stories did not have contingent cargo when they started their business. It's an optional coverage. So in order to become an active broker with the FMCSA and the DOT, you do not need any insurance legally. Okay. So again, the two types of insurance that the brokers will typically get over time will be general liability and or contingent cargo. And the reason why brokers don't need cargo insurance is because the cargo insurance is covered under the carrier's primary cargo, because the carrier who actually has, when they sign that bill of lading, right, and they take that freight, they're now responsible for it. They're now legally liable for it. So it's their insurance that will cover any sort of losses. Okay? Hope that helps. I don't know why this damn mouse. I got to replace this mouse. Okay, the one and only Jay Royce. My questions are, how can I get set up for success with my business? How can I integrate AI or automation to serve my business? And how does one scale up? Okay. All right. So I'll answer the first question first. How do I set myself up for success in the business? Well, if you're going to be a broker, you're going to have to get your authority. Okay. I strongly suggest that if you are serious, you download and follow let me find it. I've got a free download for you that you can download this blueprint, this roadmap. Okay. So question number 1, go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/7 steps and follow the 7 steps. I lay it out in this report that walks you through step by step by step in order to become and get set up as a freight broker. Okay. So that's part 1. Part 2, how do I integrate AI or automation to serve my business? Well, here's the good news. As a startup, you don't need to worry about AI or automation. Okay? You have nothing to AI and you have nothing to automate. So you need to dumb it down. You need to not focus on technology and you need to focus on developing strong carrier and customer relationships and an expertise in your niche. Okay? That's where you need to focus your time. Now, AI and automation will be built into some of the software that you're using, like load boards, like Truck Stop and DAT have AI and automation built into them, or different TMS products or different CRM products. They're going to have automation and AI built into them. You're not going to have to worry about that because it's going to be functionally built into most of the software that you're using. You individually are not going to have to worry about AI, okay? Especially as a startup. Now, you may not want to hear that, but that's the reality. Now, your last part of your question is, how do I scale up? Well, you scale up after you've built strong understanding and systems around what it takes to get customers, source carriers, rate loads, and bill and collect payments. Okay, so those are the 4 primary systems that you're going to have to build up and develop. Okay. Once you have those systems in place, now at that point, maybe you can, well, one of the ways you'll scale up is through people, right? You're going to hire and train people. Another way you're going to scale up is by leveraging technology, some of which might be AI and may not. So scaling is quite a bit down the road for you. If you're just a startup right now, you shouldn't be worrying about scaling. You should be worrying about getting your first 5 or 10 clients, okay, which is not scaling, to get you to your first 7 figures in sales so that you can learn what it takes to operate on a small level, a freight brokerage, okay? Because $1 million freight brokerage is still very small, okay? You know, big brokers are doing billions of dollars a year in sales. Medium-sized brokers are doing 100 million to $1 billion in sales, okay? So, you know, a brokerage doing a few $1 million in sales with, 5, 10, 15, 20 clients is still very, very small, but it's a great way to make a living. It's and it becomes an asset that you can pass on to your family or you can sell or whatever you want to do. But the point is that the scaling part, I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time on right now because you're not, my sense tells me that you're not at that point yet. So worrying about that right now is probably just wasted energy. You should focus it on finding clients, finding carriers, understanding rates, doing those core fundamentals that drives a brokerage. Okay. Hope that helps. Let me get rid of this banner here. Okay. Hey, and by the way, listen, I just want to mention this because it's going to be opening up very, very soon before I move on to any other questions. I am going to be opening up my Freight Broker Sales Accelerator Coaching Program. Now, it's not open yet. Seats are not available. But if you want to get notified when spots open up for that program, you want to get on the wait list at freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Now, let me tell you a little bit about that program. That program is a program I've probably had for maybe 4 or 5 years now. I've put over 1,000 clients through that program. I've had rave reviews. And what it is it's where I take that piece of my brain, everything I know about freight broker sales, strategies, tactics, tools, but most importantly, the same system that allowed me to do over $200 million as a freight broker, right? And where I work with you in a small VIP group and I teach you and help you implement that system into your business so that you can scale to 6, 7, or 8 figures rapidly. Okay. So it's my proprietary freight broker sales system that I use to grow my brokerage. And it's a coaching mentoring program where I work with you individually to help you get through that process so that you can scale up rapidly. Right. So if you want to get on the wait list for that, right? Just to get notified. There's no cost to be on the wait list. It's not a free program. It's not a cheap program. But if you want to get on the wait list and get notified, you got to go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Okay. I didn't want to forget that because seats are going to be opening up very soon. Could be as soon as a week. Okay. But within a week to 2 weeks, I'm expecting to open up enrollment for that. And I'm excited. Okay. So I hope you guys are too. Mike has a question. When hiring, who do you recommend to hire first? Sales agents, accounting, finance? Okay. Well, I guess it really depends upon where you are in your business, Mike. I'm going to assume that you're a new broker, okay, and that it currently is just you. What I would do is I wouldn't hire anybody initially. You're going to do it all initially because you need to, number one, understand how to do it all. And number two, you have the time to do it all. So, you should be doing sales. You should be doing operations. You should be doing accounting, right? You'll be doing all of that. Now, as you start to get busier with your own clients, as you start building a client database, as you start building a book of business, you're going to have less time to do some of the accounting. You're going to have less time to do some of the operational stuff like sourcing trucks and sending rate confirmations and scheduling appointments, right? So what you'll continue to do is you'll spend more time on sales. As a small broker, you'll spend more time on sales and you'll probably hire the areas that are a little bit easier to hire for, which is, some basic accounting and bookkeeping and maybe some intro or entry-level operations. So that's, if you're a startup broker, if you're brand new and you're just getting rolling, then that's kind of the format. Now, if you're already an established broker, you've already got a big book of business and you're already, running, at 90% of capacity, well, then hit me back because then it's going to be a slightly different answer. But I've given you the phased approach, right? You're going to build the book yourself. You're going to do it all yourself initially, just so you fully understand how to do it. Now, you might only be doing that for 3 or 6 or 9 months, depending upon how rapidly you grow. But once you start getting too busy to do the operations and the accounting, then that's when you'll start hiring in those areas. I would not hire sales or agents until you have all those things already established. Okay? Hope that helps. Vitaly asks, what do you think how this Florida accident will affect trucking industry short-term, long-term? I don't think it's going to have a huge effect. I think that the FMCSA and the DOT are beyond over their head with any sort of compliance. And I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just being honest. Will they probably try to plug that hole on how an illegal immigrant was able to get a CDL? Yeah, they'll probably try to do that. But in the big scheme of things, I don't think it's going to have a huge impact. It's going to have a huge impact on the illegal immigrants that try to get a CDL, but it's not going to have a huge impact on the industry, negative or positive, I don't think. But positive could be where we could maybe possibly prevent some of these accidents. That would be the positive, okay? But negatively, I don't think it's going to have an impact. Pro Gesser asks, I got 5 years experience in logistics and now trying to be an agent, but no one is hiring agents outside from America, so any solution for that? Well, it's funny because I know tons of agents that are remote outside of the US. You just got to find the right company to work with. Not all companies are going to hire, international agents that are outside of the US, but a lot of them do. Okay. Do I have a list of them? No, but I would probably spend some time on LinkedIn networking with agents that are outside of the US. Identify some of them and try to find some of the companies they're working with. I would probably also network with some brokerages that I know are, that are hiring agents and see if they're interested, right? So those are a couple of ideas. Hope that helps. Get some referrals. Okay, so I hope that helps. There are a lot of international agents, so just so you know. Mike said, and when is the best time to hire? The best time to hire is when, this varies, right? You're going to get 10 different answers from 10 different people. Me personally, I don't like to hire. My hiring is based upon what I see as far as growth rate and necessity. So if we're growing very rapidly at a very steep curve, then I'm probably not going to wait until I get to 90% of capacity. I might hire at 80. But if we're growing moderately, right, and we have a moderate growth trajectory, which is what most companies have, I might wait until we're at 90% of capacity. You don't want to hire too early, right? Because things can change, and then you got to let people go, and that causes an entire ripple effect within the organization. So there's no perfect time, but I would say gauge it a lot on the type of hire that you're bringing in, the onboarding process, the training process. How quickly are they going to start being able to contribute and understand the role that they're hired for? Do they have experience? Are they new and need to be fully trained? There's a lot of variables there, right? There's a lot of variables. So I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but I find in most cases, people hire too early. Okay. That the general rule is people hire too early. And what happens is, well, they either don't hire at all, okay, and that's a big mistake, or they hire too early. And the too early mistake is they bite off more than they can chew financially. And then all of a sudden it kind of upsets the financial apple cart, and then they can't juggle it. And then they have to let those people go and fall back, which is always difficult, because then all the time and energy you spent recruiting and hiring and training that person is gone, right? So hope that helps. Thank you, Shane. Appreciate your kind words. Shane was a part of the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator. Thank you so much. So if you guys, again, just as a plug here, if you guys want to get on the wait list for the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. Okay. It's absolutely free to get on the wait list, and you'll get notified via text when new spots open up. Now, when they open up, you're going to have to click on the link and you're going to have to review it, because those spots will fill up very quick. It sells out every single time. Okay. It sells out 100% of the time, and it typically sells out within days. So I'm just letting you know, you'll have to act quickly when you do get notified for spots opening up, but that's how you get on the wait list. Thank you for answering. My next questions are, what attributes should brokerage have that would be most appealing for shippers and clients? What is the startup cost? Soup to nuts. Okay. So I'm going to tell you that I'm going to give you the startup cost, right? The startup cost, I'm not going to go through everything itemized, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you, go to my blog at freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog. Let me see if I have a URL I can put up on the screen. I don't know if I do or I don't. I don't think I have a URL that I can just plop up there. But if you go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/blog, and then you search in the search bar, in the blog search bar, and you search cost or startup, it's going to give you an entire breakdown of everything for startup costs from freight brokers and startup costs for freight agents, itemized, broken down. And you can also download a spreadsheet with all of those costs and where you can add and make adjustments. Okay. So if you go to that page on my blog, you'll find, you'll be able to get those costs. Now, going back to what attributes should brokerages have that would be most appealing for shippers and clients. Okay. So I find that brokers that are niched down, that are focused heavily on a niche, whether that be produce or steel or heavy haul or, bottled beverages or van freight or reefer, some sort of niche where they're niching down and they're not trying to be everything to everybody. Okay. I find that is more attractive to most shippers. Okay. Because you're honing in on that expertise. So it's very hard for you or anybody to be an expert in every mode of transportation and in every industry and every different type of product. But if you're able to focus in on a specific niche and become an expert about moving that freight and understanding what's going on and the ups and downs and the good and bad that's associated with moving that type of freight specifically, then I think that expertise in niching down is really, really attractive to shippers. What else? Obviously, you're going to want to be very responsive, right? You're going to want to be, meaning when they ask you for a freight quote and they say they need it now, you got to turn it around quick, right? So you need to understand how to rate shipments quickly when you have customers, because they need to turn things around. Sometimes they can't wait hours or days, and definitely not weeks, in order to get quotes back. Okay. So you got to be responsive. If they're asking for quotes, you got to be responsive. If there's any sort of questions they have, you're also going to have to be very proactive, right? Proactive meaning you're trying to get ahead of any problems or issues that come along the route, right? And I promise you, there are tons of problems that can happen with every single shipment. So you want to try to be proactive, right? That's another big part, if you're talking about attributes. So you want to be niching down, you want to be proactive. What else? Attributes. You want to be focused on relationships versus transactions. Most brokers get it all wrong. They focus on transaction. They focus on what's in it for me. You should be focused more on the long-term value of that relationship, whether that be with a shipper or with a carrier. So, those are a few things that just come top of mind. I think if you go to my YouTube channel, I think I did an attributes video. Let me see. I think I've done some different videos on different skills and attributes that you would have to have. So you can check that out on my YouTube channel. Okay. That'd probably be the best place to try to find some of those older videos. Okay. What else we got here? Good questions. Okay, Progressor, the program you're offering is for experienced brokers, any for the person who's just getting started? Okay, so Freight Broker Bootcamp is my startup program. That's had over 10,000 students. That takes people with no experience and no knowledge and teaches them how to become a freight broker or a freight agent in 30 days or less. It's the most cost-effective and comprehensive online freight broker training program available. So if you want that startup program for straight up beginners, okay, you just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Do I have it here? How do I not have it here? Yeah, just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Let me put one up on the freaking screen here. Okay, can you guys hear me now? I don't know how long I lost you, but for startup brokers and agents, freightbrokerbootcamp.com. Trained over 10,000 students there. That is a true startup program, okay? So that is for the beginner that's just looking to get started. Maybe you're a truck driver, maybe you're the spouse of a truck driver, maybe you worked for a shipper, or maybe you're just looking for a way to make money, okay? But that's the program, put over 10,000 students. It's the most comprehensive, cost-effective online freight broker and freight agent startup program. Now that is self-paced. You don't have to wait for an instructor. You don't have to wait for any of that. You can go through the entire program at your own pace, okay? So now that's the startup program. Now, if you're looking for a more advanced program that's focused on how to get shippers and freight broker sales, right? That's only specifically about that. That's where the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator comes in. So that's where you would get on the wait list at freightbrokerbootcamp.com/waitlist. I only have 2 programs currently. That's it. I got Bootcamp, which is the startup program, and I got the Sales Accelerator, which is the sales coaching program. Okay. So one's more beginner, one's a little bit more advanced, right? In order for you to effectively be able to use the Freight Broker Sales Accelerator, you need to be a broker or an agent. That doesn't mean you need to have an established business. I have a lot of new brokers and new agents that have already went through the introductory startup phase, and now they're ready to start ramping up sales and they need help. So I have a lot of people that fit into that category. So hope that helps. Danny Hickerson, best practice to run credit checks on potential shippers. Good question. So I would say you would probably use something like a Dun & Bradstreet or maybe an Ansonia, right? Ansonia is a little bit more specific to transportation credit. So yes, you want to run credit on every client or every potential client that you're not going to do it until so here's the best practice. You're not going to run credit on every shipper you're going to call. You're not going to run credit on every shipper you do a freight quote for. It's going to get too expensive. But if you get an order from a customer, you get an actual order where you're going to do business with them, right? And they give you a tender, right? You're going to want to run credit. And you're typically going to use Dun & Bradstreet, or you're going to use maybe like an Ansonia. There are other ones out there, but those are probably the two biggest. I think Ansonia is now owned by Equifax, but if you just search Ansonia credit or you search Dun & Bradstreet, those are the two best data sources that I found for running credit on shippers. Okay. Good question. Okay. The one and only Jay Royce is asking all the questions today. So if there's no other questions, I'm going to answer this for him, and then we're probably going to wrap it up. If you have questions, hit me up in the comments now, because this could be the last question. In your opinion, what's the toughest niche? What's the easiest? Also, how can I give quick rates? Is software or formula? Okay. So the toughest niches are the ones that are more complex, but a lot of that comes from your background or experience. So if you have a background in refrigerated freight, maybe you were a driver, or maybe you worked for a shipper, or maybe you worked for another broker or something like that. If you've got experience in refrigerated freight, right, then that's something that you're going to be able to probably pick up pretty quickly. If you've got experience in heavy haul, like over-dimensional freight, heavy haul, where you're using step decks and RGNs and lowboys and, complex equipment, then that's probably not going to be a big deal for you. But if you're starting green and you don't have a lot of experience, you just look at the level of complexity. The less moving parts, the easier it is to learn. The more moving parts, the harder it is to learn. But remember something. Complexity creates opportunity, and complexity creates margin. Let me give you an example. If you just say, hey, I'm going to broker van loads, then that's probably going to have more competition because it's easier. Okay. If you say, hey, I'm going to broker van loads only out of the Northeast, now that adds a little bit of complexity to it. If you're going to say, hey, I'm going to do refrigerated loads, that's going to add another level of complexity because now you have temperature control in there. If you say, hey, I'm going to do, over-dimensional freight, now that adds a whole nother layer of complexity. So I think vans are the least complex, refrigerated, flatbed, and then moving into kind of heavy haul. Refrigerated and flatbed can kind of, basic refrigerator and flatbed can kind of flip-flop. It depends upon, they're fairly close from a complexity perspective. Maybe refrigerated is a little bit more complex because different types of products have different temperature requirements, right? But ultimately, hopefully that helps you. What's a realistic profit number to obtain first year? Well, I hate to say realistic, but I'll give you a range of what I see from students. I'm going to be totally upfront with you. We have students that purchase and go through Freight Broker Bootcamp and never make a dime because they never take action. We have others who build 6- and 7-figure businesses their first year, and we have others who go on to build 8-figure businesses later, right? But year one, I think it's very, very realistic and very, very conservative for a broker or an agent to do somewhere in the range of 4 to 6 or 4 to 700,000 in gross at a 15% margin, right? So if you did, just very conservatively, I know I did over $1 million my first year. I know a lot of students that did over $1 million their first year. I had some students who've done over $3 million their first year. But if you look at 400,000 at 15%, that's 60,000 in gross profit. you're going to have, and as a small broker, you're going to have very little overhead out of that, right? If you did 700,000 at 15%, that's 105,000 before any expenses, right? So 60 to 100 grand is very realistic in my opinion. Now, again, I can't promise you anything. And I think there are going to be people that will take the program, they will not understand it, or they will not take action, or something will get in their way and they will not make a dime. That's very real. That will happen. But there'll be other people that will build a 6 or 7 figure business. Now, if they can do it, the other person could have done it, but they chose not to for whatever reason. So I think that gives you a very conservative entry level. I tell people that are a little bit more aggressive, shoot for $1 million in sales year one. But I see a lot of people, where they're fall into that 400,000 to 700,000 gross. Hope that helps. Good question. Danny asks, can you do a blanket rate con for local runs that are time sensitive? So as a broker, should you do a blanket rate con for local runs that are time sensitive? I don't think you should. Okay. I think that you should do a rate con for each shipment, because every shipment has its own BOL or their own pro number or their own identification number or tracking number. And you're going to want to include that with each rate confirmation, right? Because ultimately the rate confirmation is what gets the carrier paid and how you manage that individual shipment, right? So, I probably would just do a rate con for each shipment. It's not that big a deal. I mean, a rate confirmation, depending on what TMS you're using, should take you less than 60 seconds. Okay. I'm not sure. Why do you want to do a blanket rate confirmation for local runs? I'm not sure why. Are you talking about a rate confirmation between you and the shipper? Or are you talking about a rate confirmation between you and the carrier? That's another question, right? So maybe you can clarify that a little bit. Latoya, I'm thinking about getting started with freight brokering and just don't know how to get started. Okay, I've got good news for you. I'm going to give you the perfect starting point to help you understand exactly what you need to do. Go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/7 steps. You will be able to download a blueprint, a roadmap that will walk you through steps 1 through 7 that you need in order to become a freight broker or a freight agent. Very simple. It's absolutely free. Okay. You download it, you'll get full access to it. You can download it, you can print it, you can do whatever you want, and you can follow those simple steps. That is a basic guideline of what you're going to have to do in order to become a freight broker. Now, beyond that, if you need additional help, that's why I have Freight Broker Bootcamp, which is my startup program. Okay. Trained over 10,000 students through that program. That's for new brokers and new agents that are looking to become a freight broker, freight agent. Just go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com and then you can get enrolled there. That training program ranges anywhere from maybe $185 and up, depending upon, if you want to have, a 1-year full access or a lifetime platinum membership. So you can check that out, the online course. If you enroll in the online course, you'll get instant access to all of the training. You don't have to wait for instructors. You don't have to wait for anything. You'll be able to log in and start consuming all that information within minutes. Okay? So I hope that helps. Okay, time sensitive with massive crane and union wage, crew waiting on next list. So are you talking about a rate confirmation between you and the shipper, or a rate confirmation between you and the carriers? Do you have one carrier that's going to be running all these loads, or is this a rate confirmation? I'm still not sure about the shipper. If it's a shipper, then you don't need a rate confirmation at all. You guys can just agree on the rate for each load, and then you bill them based upon that rate. You got to get one confirmation. Yeah. So if it's for a shipper, then it's not an issue. If it's for a carrier, I would do a rate confirmation for every load. So I think I think that makes more sense. Now, if you're using the exact same carrier every time, then you could make that judgment call as to how you want to do that. If the carrier wants a rate confirmation for every load, great. If they don't, well, then as long as you guys have agreed on the rates and you know how many loads they've moved so you can bill them properly, go ahead. Yeah, multiple carriers that don't have time to stop until the end of the day. Listen, you do you, man. I'm just telling you the proper way to do it. You've already made up your decision what you're going to do, okay? Which is fine if you're comfortable with it. I'm telling you best practices. Best practices are with every load for every carrier, get a rate confirmation signed before they pick up the load, before you dispatch them, before they have anything. Simple. Okay? Hope that helps. All right, guys. Listen, any final questions, let me know. But in the meantime, do me a huge favor. Would you guys do me a favor? If you got any value out of today's live or Q&A, help me. Do me a huge favor. Write a quick Google review. It'll take you 60 seconds. It costs you absolutely nothing. Go to freightbrokerbootcamp.com/reviews. Okay? Do that now. Do me a huge favor. If you asked a bunch of questions today, wink, wink, wink. There was a few of you that asked a bunch of questions. I gave you a lot of answers. There was no charge. This is free admission. You didn't ask for a credit card. I didn't ask for your email. I didn't ask for anything in order to be a part of this. If you want me to continue to do these free trainings or free Q&As every week, do me a huge favor. 1, hit the like button. 2, give me a quick review, a quick honest review, freightbrokerbootcamp.com/reviews. This is what keeps me motivated to come back every week. I don't have to do these live trainings. Okay. It's not a part of my Freight Broker Bootcamp program. I mean, they have dedicated access. This is something I do completely outside of that. I've done it for years now. I'll continue to do it, but I need positive feedback from you guys. And this is me just asking you for a quick favor to write a Google review. Every week we have people that come in and do those Google reviews, but right now, with everything going on with AI and Google, I want to make sure that Google understands the value that I'm providing to my community and the value I'm providing to my students. So if you give an honest review of freightbrokerbootcamp.com/reviews, it'd be greatly appreciated. Maybe I'll give you a shout out in the next episode. And great questions, great session. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope you guys learned something. Make sure you set a reminder on your phone next week, Monday at noon, for the next Freight Broker Bootcamp Live. Talk to you soon, guys. Thank you so much. Have an awesome day. Oh, by the way, get on the wait list. Hint, hint. Okay? I'm giving you a hint. Get on the wait list. It's going to open up very, very soon. This is for the Sales Accelerator. Okay? I'll see you guys next week.